the way I see it is, yes, the Bible says God hates divorce, and I hate divorce. God doesn't hate divorced people, and he's merciful. And he doesn't put divorce somewhere above or outside of the rest of the things that we do wrong in life. Yes, it's got bigger consequences than many of the mistakes we make, but God's mercy is even bigger.
Introduce yourself, Katrina.
I was born here in Canberra and I've never lived anywhere else, which makes me a little bit unusual, but I love Canberra. I think we're very spoiled here. It's a great place to bring kids up. I have 3 adult children who are all out doing their own thing in life, but they're all still in Canberra, so that's pretty exciting for me. And I work in disability and healthcare, which I love.
Good. I reckon Canberra's one of Australia's best kept secrets.
Absolutely. Happy for it to stay a secret.
I don't mind the rest of Australia. Think bagging out Canberra and think, oh, who would want to live there? That's fine. More room for us.
It's a good place, and the coast is 2 hours away.
Yeah.
So we really have nothing to complain about.
So describe your life before Christ, like before, have you always had a faith in God, or tell me your backstory?
I've always had an assumption that God was there. Even as a little person, I would talk to, I don't know who I thought I was talking to, but I guess I always had a sense of a presence of a higher being or power that somehow was there. And it wasn't until I was in my teens that a gorgeous, gorgeous great auntie who grew up in the Salvos, I have quite a strong Salvation Army history in my family, took us to church. And at an Easter service, I heard the message of Jesus, that he died for us on the cross at what we now call Easter. And he rose again. And I just knew in my heart that this was the God, or that sense of somebody who had been with me my whole life.
How old were you at that stage?
I think I was about 13, roughly.
Because that's an interesting age, you're sort of working out your identity.
And I think probably we all have that sense of, I want to know who I am, that finding yourself seems like a really kind of weird concept because you're you, right? But I think we all have some sense of that. So figuring out that there is a God who created me was really significant. And you're right, 13, maybe especially for girls, I don't know, but it is that time of insecurity, of wanting to know where your life's headed.
And how has your faith journey been like since then? Like, has there been some ups and downs and difficulties, or?
Yeah, lots of ups and downs. And lots of really slow processes. I'm not a patient person, so if I can see something that needs to happen, I want it now. But God's not like that. He's patient with us and for us. So lots of slow journeys in terms of learning patience, God healing my heart of many different things. We've all had disappointments in lives. And things don't heal slowly. Think about a broken bone. There's a process.
Now, I know that you've written a book.
I have.
Tell me about it. I'm really interested.
It's called In Australia's Beginning. I have a soft heart for our First Nations people and wanted to tell the story. At the time I was working in early childhood education, so for these gorgeous kids I wanted to tell the story of God creating Australia. So I took the story of God creating the world and made it specific to Australia. So I talked about emus, kangaroos, clownfish, gum trees. It was really fun.
Cool. And what's it called again?
It's called In Australia's Beginning.
In Australia's Beginnings. Yeah. Awesome. Now, I know that you've had some pretty challenging times in your life. You separated or divorced?
I'm currently divorced.
Divorced, yeah. And I never know anyone who's had a pleasant divorce by definition. How did that hit you emotionally, spiritually? How did you go processing that?
Again, very slow burn. I was one of, I think, probably a lot of people who married the wrong person very, very young. And we would both say that. Of course, if you've married the wrong person, your spouse has married the wrong person as well. So we chose to stick at it for 20 years. So it was a really long process of trying to make this thing happen and work. But they tell me marriage is hard enough when you're with the right person. In the end, it was just, everybody was sick. My kids were sick. We were both sick. It was time to just say, you know what, we've had enough.
I'm particularly interested in what it's like to be single at your stage of life, our stage of life. I'm guessing it's not easy. I'm guessing it has a bunch of challenges. I have gone there. Thought, what would it be like? Because I have heard a number of my single middle-aged friends say, it has its own set of challenges. Second time around. Do you want to tell us some about that?
Oh, it sucks. I don't think there are many people who enjoy being single. Some, I'm sure, do. But for most of us, we want that gorgeous person who we feel like was made for us and who we can enjoy sharing life with and who complements us. So I guess the temptation is to go, well, I just want to be with someone. I don't like being single. I'll just kind of settle. And for me, that's the worst thing you could do, being someone who settled into marriage, being young and silly. It's the worst thing you could do at any age. So living with that singleness that you really don't want to live in is a challenge, but it's also a great opportunity that married people don't necessarily get to figure out all by yourself and with God who He made you to be. What do you like doing that you didn't get to figure out when you were struggling through your previous relationship because you were in survival mode? What kind of things are you good at that you didn't get to do? How many different friends can you make doing things that challenge you? So, yeah, it's challenging, but it's an opportunity.
Now, I know that you're now friends with a mutual friend, Damien, who has sat there just a couple of months ago, and we had a similar sort of chat, not knowing this was happening. Yeah. So how did you guys meet? Tell me what you feel comfortable to tell me and what the whole world can know.
So we have had a lot of mutual friends, including my brother and my sister. Damien's known them for a long time, not that I knew that. We also have a lot of mutual friends we had previously before we met. We knew a lot of the same people from the church we now attend together. So just kind of social circles happened, and we've been hanging out together for a little while now and having a great time.
Okay. I'm not going to let you off the hook there. I want to know what's going through your head when you approach a new relationship, second time round. What red flags are you looking for? And what are the things like, oh, that's a relief. Great. Yeah.
For both Damien and I, well, the biggest thing on both of our lists was shared values. Neither of us wanted to go ahead if our values didn't align. So for us, we're both Christians, and that was what we were looking for. That is a really hard one because it means that you're kind of talking about really intimate stuff quite early before you've even made a decision about whether or not you're in a relationship. So it's really awkward. But I think it's probably at the top of most people's lists and really important. Talking about not settling. You don't want to start deciding that you really like someone and then 3 months in figure out, well, this actually isn't going anywhere.
How did you go through that process of reconciling your divorce with your faith? It is 2020.
It is.
However, divorcing someone is still a huge event.
Yeah, it is.
Hugely traumatic, and it has implications for our faith, I believe. How did you reconcile the divorce with your faith?
That's a really good question, and a lot of people struggle with that, including myself. The way I see it is, yes, the Bible says God hates divorce, and I hate divorce. God doesn't hate divorced people, and He's merciful. And He doesn't put divorce somewhere above or outside of the rest of the things that we do wrong in life. Yes, it's got bigger consequences than many of the mistakes we make, but God's mercy is even bigger to match.
Yeah. And how have your kids handled this two-step process? Obviously the divorce, which how many years ago did that happen?
About 4.
Okay. And now Damien entering the scene.
My kids have been awesome. So they're all grown up. They just want to see me happy, and they watch. Particularly my daughter, because she's still living with me. They watch me very, very carefully and are quite protective. But if I'm happy and I'm the person who is with me is being kind to me, they're fine.
Okay. What advice, what pearls of wisdom would you give to someone who, say, in your situation 4 years ago, no one plans for this to happen, really. Nope. No one with their head screwed on. What advice would you give to someone who finds himself single through whatever circumstance and is trying to rebuild their life?
I'd say find your tribe. My hope is that you already have a tribe of people around you who love you and who can just cry with you and do whatever it is that you do to heal. Don't try to do it by yourself. Sure, there are going to be times when you isolate, but find your tribe, that inner circle who you can trust. I think that's really important. And then figure out who you are. Don't jump into anything as much as you want to. Most of us do want to just jump straight in again. But my best advice would be figure out who you are and figure out what kind of partner you want to be. If it's too hard to just figure out who you are and embrace your singleness, and for most of us it is, embrace, okay, I do want to re-partner one day. What kind of partner do I want to be? Do I want to be needy and clingy and seeing my identity in my partner? No, most of us hopefully would say no to that. So use this time to figure it all out so that you are fun and a really supportive, happy, healthy partner when the time comes.
So where does forgiveness fit in all this? Because you've been through some pretty serious trauma. How did you have you come to that point where you've been able to both forgive yourself and forgive your ex? And if you have, how did you get there?
I think forgiving yourself is harder for most of us. Forgiving my ex was a process that happened well before the marriage officially fell apart. Normally people check out well before it actually happens. So that, I think forgiveness is often a matter, well it is, it's a matter of self-care and self-preservation as much or more than wanting to forgive the other person. If you're holding on to anger or whatever it is, resentment, hurt, and somebody else has moved on, the person you're hurting is yourself. So yes, it's a process, but it's an important one. And I would say it would be really good to just go and see someone professional counselling is hugely helpful. These people can give you tools. I think there's probably still a stigma. It is 2020, but there's probably still a stigma around that. But I'd highly recommend it.
Amongst your church friends, what did you find helpful and what did you find not helpful?
What I found helpful was people who would just hang out with me, be real, don't necessarily need to talk about what's going on, but just have coffee, get me out, do stuff, and let me be real. And be real with me, not feel like they need to avoid stuff. What I didn't find helpful was people who were hung up on the legalistic, well, you're divorced. That's never helpful, no matter what the mistake is.
Katrina, thank you for your time. This has been amazing, and I wish you well. Whatever happens or doesn't happen, no pressure. But Damien's a great guy.
He really
be nice to each other. Yeah,
we are nice to each other. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony.